important.
And
how many kidney donations are there in Switzerland per year?
1,500. No, I think 1,500 donors are waiting for someone at any point. I think that's what recipients. And I think there are 500 donors because what I read is that 1,000 people are waiting without having any donor at any time. Do
you have matching? Or if I give to you and you give to her and he gives, and you have those kinds of chains there as well for people that?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of, to be honest. I would need to look into that.
That's the way that it has gone in the United States now. More people are raising their hands to give, maybe not to someone that they don't know, but to someone that they do know and they're not a match. And so either hospitals or other organizations will do that matching and those chains of giving.
Okay. But okay. But how does it work? Because you said there's this waiting list basically that has some criteria and gets shuffled around. So if there's this waiting list, which is like the ultimate authority, and let's say we are friends or we are family, and I know you need a kidney, then me giving you that kidney would basically make us jump the waiting list. Is that allowed or?
You getting, since we know each other, that's called a direct donation.
Okay.
That's not in the same category as, usually they come from deceased, people who sign their driver's license. Those are allocated to who needs it first. But if you work with somebody, you want to give to your wife, you want to give to your next door neighbor, direct donations.
That's fine. Okay. Yeah. I would need to look into that, how it works here. But we don't have enough, and it's same with blood donations. We don't in summertime. Right now, it's the winter season, skiing season. There are a lot of accidents as well. So they actually just had a newspaper article published saying that they need more blood donation at the moment because they're running out of it's holiday season. People are going away. So the regular donors are not covering enough. So and in the summer it's the same. They have a lack of blood basically, and it's what I found, it's surprisingly difficult to get people to donate. So the places that I worked with, I worked with some larger corporations at some point in time, and they sometimes do these blood runs. In the office, and even if you go, hey, look, guys, it's like half an hour and it's nothing bad. It's just a little, you get pricked and that's it. It's hard to get people to do it because people would come up with all kinds of excuses like, no, I've never did it before, and then I don't feel like it, and I have it.
Go to the reason for all those excuses. What's the reason for those excuses? It's because there's a fear. Fear, whether it's a fear of the needle or it's blood makes a lot of people feel, queasy. I understand why they say no. If you got your ear pierced and you've never tried to give blood, try it once. If you don't like it, don't do it again. But I always encourage people to try it at least once because, it's not like it feels great, but it doesn't really hurt that much. It's a tiny thing. But try once. Do it, great. Don't want to do it again, don't do it again. That's a good place.
Yeah. Connection was interrupted for a second there. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Thanks for sharing. And it's difficult. Now I can understand people. I kind of see why people don't go, and I myself, even though I try to go, like I said, now I didn't go for quite a while now, and I could have gone. And sometimes you cannot go for reasons that are valid, like you have a cold or something, which excludes you, or you're on medicine, or have whatever. There's some in Switzerland they're quite strict in terms of what makes you not. Yes, exactly. Yeah, if you went to Africa in the past 6 months, if you lived in the UK for more than half a year in the past, like before 86 or something like that, if you're in Switzerland, if you are gay, for example, it's one reason that you're not allowed to. Which there was a big discussion about this, and there was a big pushback, rightfully so, because people are saying, hey, just because I'm gay, I live in a stable relationship, and I haven't changed my sexual partner in 20 years. Why should I not be able to donate blood? So there was a bit of discussion here, but yeah, and yeah, sometimes just things happen, but it's not as easy. So I can only imagine that being a live donor is so much more.
It's not so much more. It's kind of the same thing. It's a a little bit more of a risk numbers wise, but the rationale behind it is same thing. Here's a medical thing I can do to help somebody else, and I'll never see the result. I love that. Mm-hmm. It's in the same club. Kidneys are. I've always said you don't have to do being a living donor. Mm-hmm. That's great if you know somebody, but the group of people that have donated to people that they don't know, that's still odd. It's still different. But if everybody, like a lot of places in Europe, did that presumed consent, mm-hmm. where if everybody signed their driver's license here in the United States, there wouldn't anybody be waiting on the list. There'd be plenty of deceased donor, organs. That'd be great.
Yeah, and I think they should change it, but then again, it's not easy to change the law for that. And people tried here in Switzerland as well. They failed doing it, unfortunately, as far as I know. So they tried collecting signatures for it and did not reach enough. I think in Switzerland you needed 100,000 signatures, and last time I checked, they didn't have enough. So it's a shame. It's a shame. It wouldn't take much, and it would change a lot for a lot of people. That's the point.
Well. If somebody needs a kidney here, mm-hmm. there's a limited number of ways. If you or I or our loved ones needed one, what do you do? What do you do that works? So social media helps a little bit. And then there's old school ways. Actually, people write, it happens a lot here. They'll write on the windows of their car, wife needs kidney, mm-hmm. O positive, and a phone number. And those kinds of things, if you see it, you might call. If you don't share your story, if the people don't know it, how can they call? How can they help? So it's interesting the way people are reaching out now. I've always said if somebody that I know needed one, I make the assumption that I know enough people that would probably raise their hand. Mm-hmm. I hope that's true. I don't know it to be true, but it feels like it is.
But coming back to statistics, statistically, it still doesn't add up. That's the point. You probably feel that way, but whether.
So it took me a few years, but eventually, Ganette's husband, my recipient's husband's name's Sagai.
Okay.
And for years, I didn't ask, but I was thinking, how is it that he or somebody in their family or somebody in their large church mm-hmm. hadn't raised their hand? Mm-hmm. Or if they had, how come they hadn't found a kidney for her yet? If I'm O positive and I'm not special, there's a lot of O positive blood types out there. Mm-hmm. Why she was on death's doorstep? How is it possible that nobody raised their hand? Mm-hmm. And so eventually, a few years after we had met and our families had spent time becoming family, I asked. Mm-hmm. I asked him, I said, did anybody in your church ever, I didn't want to point my finger at him, but I said, did anybody in your church ever try? He said, no. I said, how is that? Why is that? I don't want to be accusatory. It's not me. And he said, fear. People were scared, or it's not as common in the Ethiopian community. And so I heard, but I still have a hard time coming to an understanding with that. What wouldn't you do for your loved one?
Could he have donated?
No, okay. Different blood type.
Different blood type. Is it the match between organs? Is it just the blood type? Or is there something else?
There's something else.
I've got something to say about that. Not necessarily about this specific case, but I have done some reading about some of the, especially in California, there was a law that was up for vote about, it was very confusing, but it had to do with kidney dialysis centers. Mm-hmm. And there are, I think, maybe two major companies that own all the dialysis centers in the United States. And for some reason, I started talking to people within those centers, and people that are on dialysis are not approached that often within those centers about transplant. So they don't have that much information about transplantation for them to be able to then share with family members. We're making assumptions that it's something that is common and well known, and that there's a process, and this is how you get on the list, and it's good to have a kidney as opposed to going through dialysis 2 or 3 days a week. But that's not, from my understanding, is not the approach that is taken by many of the dialysis centers. That's money in their pocket, and that money is also subsidized by the American government. I mean, it's this whole thing, dialysis centers, and how they're paid for by the government started back in the 70s under Nixon or whatever. So there's a whole political and lack of education purposefully.
Yeah, and it's sad, but it's true. I mean, a patient that you healed is no longer a patient.
Exactly.
That's a big
but that's a whole other discussion. Goodbye.
Your blood type is one. There's something, and I'm not a doctor, but there's something called antigens. We all have 6 of them. They're markers in our blood. And it used to be you needed 5 out of 6 to do a transplant. 6 out of 6, you're a twin. 5 out of 6, you're a good match. Then they got 4 out of 6 needed to match, and they fill in the rest with pharmaceuticals. I've heard you can now even do it when the blood types aren't the same, as long as the recipient eats a certain anti-rejection pill the rest of his or her life. But the more technology and medicine moves forward, it's easier to put people that aren't exact matches together.
Yeah. Just coming back to what your wife said, it's also something that my wife mentioned yesterday when we talked about our conversation. With blood donation, she said, "Look, I know that you're donating blood, but you're pretty much the only one that I know personally. Like from our family, no one donates on a regular basis. And why, if you go to the doctors, why don't you get like a little flyer in your hand and say, look, hey, how about donating blood?" So no one is actively reaching out. I mean, and that could be the same with, at least in the places where you go to, where there is medical staff around that is informed about this. Why are they not reaching out to people and encouraging people to donate blood to become organ?
Well, they are. They just don't have a big enough budget to do it so that it hits us often enough or as frequently enough as it's needed. When you gave blood yesterday, had you signed up or did you see the gymnasium with a sign that said "Give blood today"?
I'm on a mailing list, so I'm receiving emails. If I see them, or if if they just don't end up in my I'll read that later folder. That's the point. And they do sometimes have signs out there, but I'm a marketer, so I know how much we are bombarded with marketing messages all day. So that little tiny blood donation ad is gonna win against the 18,000 contacts we have every day. No chance.
No chance.
For me, I give blood regularly as well. Once you're on the mailing list here, the Red Cross, once you're on their mailing list, they email you. They know that you can give blood every 7 weeks, and they reach out to me electronically every 7 weeks. And the problem is where my wife and I live, it's not very often that there is a blood drive close. I've got to drive 20, 30 minutes to find the blood drive. But so I sign up, and sometimes I do that. But more often than not, I'm driving by a place and I see the sign, and I'll pull in, and I'll just donate that way. So if it's convenient.
That's true. Okay.
That's true. Okay.
In Switzerland, you can only donate every three months as a male, and every 4 months as a female. That's the recommendations. Yeah. That's a bit shorter. Well, that's the point. Yeah. Coming back to your story, and how did the family of what's her name? I can never remember that name. Gnat. How did Gnat's family react to you? I mean, did they carry you around for a year and wave your face with palm leaves and
it's funny. That's a great question. Like all ethnicities, family is important, and we truly felt like we became part of their family, not extended family, but family. Early on, we went to an we were invited to an Ethiopian wedding. I think it was a cousin's kids or something like that in DC. And we discovered a number of things that weekend. Number one, the wedding invitation says 2:00. So my wife and I, what would you do? We show up at 1:30, 1:45, and we get there, and the church is empty.
Okay.
And we go, it's empty, and we look at the invitation to make sure the date and the time is correct. And it's today. We're in the right place. And at 2:00, a couple of people walked in. We went, it's an Ethiopian church. So first of all, we were the only Caucasians within, around. And we said, is there a wedding today? And they went, yes. Okay. Where is everybody? Oh, they're not here yet. Oh. And so we sat down, and of course, over the course of the next hour and a half, the place started filling up. And afterwards, at the reception, we went up to Gannett and Sagai and said, was there a time change that we didn't know about? And he goes, no, it's just Ethiopian time. Everything starts a couple hours later than, Yeah, but the invitation said 2:00. But we're family. You ask what their family was like. We're treated so close as family that those weddings that we were invited to, it was everything was meal centered. Early on, they were giving us gifts, and we had to say, "You're making us uncomfortable. Don't give me a watch. Let's find food as a common ground where we can appreciate each other's cultures and celebrate as a family around a table, as opposed to buying things." So it's been wonderful. And as I said, that's what introduced us to Ethiopian food, which my son and I love. We can't get enough of that.
And did her taste change? Did she? So no cravings for Jewish
specialties and
boy,
do I wish that was the case, but no.
Okay, I see. You mentioned you are not religious, or not really religious.
No, I was raised by two Jewish parents who raised my brothers and I. We went to temple every Sunday morning. I was even bar mitzvahed when I was 13 years old, but religion doesn't play a part in my life. It's not. It's not a significant part. It's more of Jewish food than it is Jewish prayer.
Okay.
Okay.
Harold, so it's I still can't get over the fact how someone can do that, and I think it's absolutely amazing. And I know that you don't feel like you're someone special, but what I noticed having these conversations with quite a few people now is that people who do outstanding things, who do exceptional and extraordinary things, often don't think they're extraordinary. That's part of what makes them extraordinary, I think. And it's funny. A few weeks back, I had a conversation with a guy named James Harrison. I don't know if you've heard of him. So he's an Australian guy, and he's called the Man with the Golden Arm. And he's the world record holder in blood donations. So he donated 1,800 times, basically every 2 weeks since he was since the 60s. And what the crazy thing about the whole thing is, he has a very specific marker in his blood, and when two people mate and have a child, and their blood types don't add up, then there is a big chance that usually that kid will either die in the womb or will have massive birth defects. And up until the 60s, there was nothing to do about it. And then they discovered there is this one I don't know the technical term for it, the factor that you can give a little bit of that antibody, basically, and then the kid will develop basically the immune system will adapt to it, and then it's fine. And he has a very specific kind of factor in his blood, and it's estimated that he saved 2.4 million babies, because for the past 60 years he's been donating, and he got into an accident when he was young. He had one lung removed, and he received blood when he was 16. I think 13 liters of blood transfusions. And he said, look, I've been given a second chance, and as soon as I'm old enough, I'm going to donate. And he has been donating ever since. He had to stop a couple of years back because in Australia, when you get to, I think, 81 it was, you have to stop for health reasons, so he cannot do it. But he would have done it forever. And it's amazing that someone, and I also asked him, look, did you ever think, I have enough of that, or did you ever think of stopping, or do you consider yourself to be extraordinary? Because you saved, like, literally in every Australian child with that didn't have that antibody since the 60s. In every Australian child is a little bit of James Harrison, and his blood has been in every single dose of medicine they've given to hundreds of thousands of mothers. And he said, no, it's of course I have to do it. Why would I not do it? I mean, it's the same like you saved life, and you could have just said, I'd rather go to a football game tonight.
I think that's almost full circle in the conversation. One of the first things we spoke about was, why would somebody do this? Mm-hmm. Why would somebody? Are they compensating for something? Is it And just the quick recap is those things that happened in my life that led me to that table were insignificant, that ended up being extremely significant. The big one was my father passing at an early age. But every single one of those little stories, I always say, we all see them every day. You just got to notice them. And the story, our particular story, is great because she's healthy today. As of now, it's been about 19 years. We celebrated 19 years last month on the anniversary. And she's healthy and she's good, and I'm healthy and I'm good. That's great. It's a really good story. So I figured I share it, and I more than appreciate you reaching out and asking me to share it with you, because somebody who's listening, they're picking up a breadcrumb. That's good.
Then you never know. And someone else I've been talking to a few weeks back put it in a very nice way. Like that, you at every point in your life, basically, you can make two decisions, and often these decisions are just a tiny little bit, like they're very close to each other, but along the way, the change gets bigger, and you never know that little decision that you make today will, at some point in the far, far, far away future, have a drastic impact. And then I think that's what it's all about. And I think that's also what this is all about. And hopefully someone who's watching this will say, hey, let's donate some blood. Let's put myself on the organ donors list and save somebody in the future. And then I think that's definitely worthwhile.
Hey, listen, if any of the people that are watching are curious to meet Gannett, there's a 15-minute documentary that we could send people to that they can watch for free. It's called, or go to www.heraldskidney.com, and you can just click on watch the film. And when it says, if you want to be a donor, they're not asking for your money. They're asking if you want information about organ donation. So feel free to click.
Yeah. Definitely, and it's very interesting. It's very fascinating. It's summarizes the whole thing in a very short amount of time, but it's really nice, and you get to see all the pictures that you talked about when you first met, and you younger with a little bit less of a mustache, but yeah. I have to ask about the mustache. Is that something you're getting a lot of questions about?
My mustache is older than you. My mustache celebrated its 42nd birthday last summer. So it's been there a long time. I'll show you something that I don't show a lot of people. Look, I believe.
Fantastic. I think I've asked all the questions. I'm sure there are many more questions I could ask, but I think you're an amazing person, and I know you don't think the same way. But you saved a life, and you've influenced a lot of people. So I want to leave it with that. And there's just two questions that I'm always asking anyone at the end of any conversation, and the first question is, this is a series of interviews with extraordinary people who make a change in this world and to inspire others and to motivate others to do great things. Who do you consider to be someone extraordinary?
That's a long list.
Shoot.
Shoot.
Sha, are you out there?
Huh?
Are you out there?
What do you mean, am I out there?
Yeah, I just want to make sure. My son.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to be impressed. I see him every day. My son started out this life as my daughter, and has transitioned into my son. And it's hard not to watch the ability at which he walks through life with that, with the passion that he carries around every day. That's tremendous. So that's one that's in front of me every day that I don't take for granted. But it's a long list. There's a lot of people that influence me all the time.
Wonderful. And my last question is, and I want to close this conversation with your answer. What's your message to anyone who's watching or who's listening to this?
Pay attention. Everybody's got those breadcrumbs in front of them all the time, but you don't see them if you don't notice them. So just pay attention. Go through life looking for it. Look for the fun breadcrumbs, pick them up and put them in your pocket. It's about as much as I can give you.
I thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I hope, again, anyone who's watching this, go ahead, go donate blood, go sign up for the organ donors list, and make sure to visit haroldskidney.com.
And tell your wife I said, hey.
I will do. Thank you very much, Harold.
Thanks.
Here comes the sunshine and burns away clouds like they never were.